Mr. Cline.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Director Wray, thank you for being here. Since we last spoke in appropriations on April 27th, Special Counsel John Durham delivered his report detailing intelligence activities and investigations arising out of the 2016 presidential campaign. When Mr. Durham presented here at the committee, I asked him these questions. He was able to answer me in yes or no answers. I'd ask you to do the same. Did the FBI have an adequate basis on which to launch Crossfire Hurricane?
My understanding is that Mr. Durham found that it did not have a proper basis to elevate it to a full investigation, but that he thought it was an assessment or a preliminary inquiry was appropriate.
Did the FBI fail to examine all available exculpatory evidence?
I think, well, do you say to examine it? Certainly, I think there were failures, significant failures, with respect to exculpatory information.
Did the FBI interview all key witnesses in Crossfire Hurricane?
I think Mr. Durham, found that they did not.
Did the FBI abuse its authority under the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act?
Well, certainly there were violations that were totally unacceptable, and in my view, cannot be allowed to happen again.
As noted in the report, Crossfire Hurricane investigators had hoped the returns on the Carter Page FISA application would, quote, self-corroborate. Do FBI or DOJ guidelines permit investigators to submit uncorroborated allegations in a FISA application in the hopes that the returns will self-corroborate?
I've never heard of that concept.
Okay. Is Crossfire Hurricane the only time the FBI has violated the procedures for the FISA process?
Well, there are a lot of different procedures, but that's certainly not the only compliance incidents that we've had with respect to FISA.
Director, as I expressed to you upstairs, the American people are outraged, and just this week I had at a town hall constituents expressing outrage about the actions of those within your agency who have damaged the FBI's reputation and undermined the good work of the vast majority of hardworking men and women within your agency. But going down the list, you have the Biden family investigations, you have the anti-Catholic memo. By the way, you mentioned 5 individuals who contributed to the anti-Catholic memo in the Richmond field office. Are they still employed by the FBI?
I don't think I mentioned any specific individuals. I did say that this was a product by a single field office that we took action on immediately, and we have an inspection that's underway right now that's looking at how this happened and how we make sure it doesn't happen again.
So it's still possible that individuals will be fired as a result of your review?
Well, I don't want to predetermine or forecast where the review will go. We're going to look at everything from exactly how it happened and what went wrong, and then if there are appropriate steps to be taken, we will take whatever the appropriate steps are.
Okay. You have the violence against pro-life clinics. You have the investigation of parents speaking at school board meetings. You have the collusion with big tech. The FISA abuses of Section 702 is where I want to focus right now. As you know, Section 702 authorizes warrantless surveillance. It's supposed to be targeted toward foreigners abroad, but the surveillance sweeps in a large amount of Americans' communications, and the FBI routinely runs searches of Section 702 data looking for phone calls, emails, text messages of Americans, so-called backdoor searches. Depending on the year, FBI has conducted anywhere from 3.4 million in 2021 to 200,000 in 2022. Given this fact, do you honestly think it's fair to continue describing Section 702 as an authority targeted only at foreigners abroad?
I do.
It looks like a framework that enables the FBI to spy on countless Americans. Would you agree with that assessment?
Well, I can't speak to what it looks like to certain people. I can tell you that it is an authority focused on foreigners overseas in the context of national security investigations. I would add to that the FBI's piece of that, the FBI only accesses, so everything we're talking about FBI related only goes to about 3% of the entire 702 collection. And then within that 3%, this is important now.
Okay, I have 30
It's important
seconds,
that people
so.
understand this. The FBI ends up only accessing content in like 1.5% of that. So
I
a
understand.
little context is appropriate.
Well, if you're conducting hundreds of thousands or even just hundreds of warrantless searches of Section 702 data for Americans' communications, it's clearly a domestic surveillance tool. And I would argue that I believe it does pose a real problem within the FBI's conduct toward Americans, and And I speak for many when I say I think it poses a real problem for the reauthorization of FISA authority for your organization. So with that, I yield back.